When the Bloods first came out, is it true that people viewed it as a West Coast thing and it wasn't respected on the East Coast like that?
I don't know when the Bloods first came out, the Bloods was respected on the East Coast. I don't know about how they was respected by Bloods from the West Coast or Bloods from different locations, but I'm talking about other gangs like Land Kings and the Nietas and the Zulu Nation respected the Bloods. Hell yeah, the Bloods was a force to be reckoned with. The Bloods was a force to be reckoned with. Anybody that spoke up, anybody who was Blood that wasn't from New York, would have came to New York at that time and spoke up against New York, would have got fucking destroyed. Any West Coast Blood that would have came to New York saying what they were doing was the wrong thing would have got Peter Road.
Because you see some of these times, like these people on from New York, they'll say like when it first started happening, they viewed it like that's a West Coast thing, like banging for colors and things like that. Like that's not something that the East Coast really was about. New York was really about as far as the gang life.
I mean, look, one can't fault a coast for what they adopted out of desperation. The Bloods was born, the Bloods being created was its response to oppression, just like the Land Kings was created. The response to that oppression from the 5% and the Muslims to the land population in the 80s and the prison system, the response to that was the creation of the Land Kings. The Land Kings came from Chicago. Somebody that was from Chicago, King Blood, came to New York. That was his answer to the oppressive nature of the 5%ers and the Muslims at that time in the New York prison system. That was like a natural occurrence. That happened. It was just an organic thing that took place. Get what I'm saying? If King Blood would have been a disciple or motherfucking a stone, it would have happened the same way.
Right.
It would have happened the same way. He just so happened to be Land King. But if he was a maniac, or if he was a cobra, the New York prison system would have been flooded with maniacs and cobras. You know what I'm saying? It's an organic thing that took place. It was whatever was happening in that jail. It was the natural response to the oppression that was taking place in that jail.
You know, when I first interviewed 10 Toes Down, and he was a Blood at one time, he said that the oppression was happening on both sides.
Yes.
It wasn't just one side, like how at the Queen's Flip interview, they were trying to make it seem like the Bloods came about because the Latin Kings were oppressing Black people. You know, he said it was happening on both sides. And the way that people describe it, they're only talking about one building in Rikers. There's so many different buildings where all these things were happening.
I can't speak for what happened on Rikers Island, but I know people that was there. And, you know, the Bros was the big bad wolf at the time. You know what I mean? But look, the Bros was getting, the Latinos was getting oppressed hard in the 80s by the 5%ers and the Muslims. And then the Bros became the big bad wolf, and we started pushing our weight around. If you want to call that oppression, call it oppression, but y'all was doing it to us first. You know what I mean? And then we started doing it to them. Like the oppressed became the oppressor. Like a lot of bros like say, yeah, we was pushing up on them niggas left and right. Niggas didn't want it. That's a form of oppression. So, I mean, look, I just give you my answers how I see them because oftentimes the truth is a difficult thing to absorb. But I'm not going to sit here and say, no, we was the victims. No, that never happened. No, we didn't push up on nobody. No, then why the fuck we had that big ass war with the Bloods if nothing ever happened between us and them? You know what I'm saying? Well, why the Bloods reacted to us the way they did if there wasn't like a backstory. There's backstories. There's plenty of things certain things that created what happened between us and the Bloods. But look, one big dog meets another big dog, and then you have a pissing contest, we clash, and all hell breaks loose.
You know, and what I was talking about earlier is like it's interesting because you have so many people that can come online and share a different perspective, right? Like some people can say, "Oh, the gang life wasn't respected by people in New York early on. They felt like that was some West Coast stuff." But then obviously, like you said, that you know, from your perspective, it wasn't like that. It was always respected, you know? So it's just, it's, you get these different conflicting stories and perspectives when you look at information online, and it's hard to tell sometimes like who is correct.
They both correct. Because I'm gonna give you an example, right? I keep going back to the Bloods because like us, the Bloods was created somewhere else. You know what I mean? So when the Bloods was created in New York, a lot of West Coast Bloods was like, what? That's our shit. How the fuck that shit is out there? Hell no, we're not jacking that. But you can't tell that to New York blood. It's respected out here. That's all that matters. What y'all niggas doing don't respect, that's y'all fucking problem. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Would you say that it's a little bit similar because when the Kings first started in New York, it wasn't that you guys got the approval from Chicago, right? It ended up happening later on. Like you guys had to have a meeting and everything got settled from there.
I just feel like now that I'm older, I see like their point of view. Chicago bros from Chicago that, you know, something they fought so hard for in their neighborhoods that they bled for get started somewhere else without their permission. Think about that. Of course, they're gonna have their reservations like, yo, no, 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 no.
It's
And
like
if
taking
y'all
somebody's
niggas don't
brand.
explain yourself, it's gonna be up. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I mean? That's just like you create Nike, and all your niggas is wearing Nike, and out of nowhere, they're wearing Nike in motherfucking New York, but you created it in LA.
Right.
You're gonna be like, hell no, that's our shit. That's how they felt. And I feel that. I respect that too. But you know, like the Bloods and like the Bloods from LA and like the Latin Kings from Chicago, they understand that we was both born organically. We didn't just say, yo, we're gonna copy that and do what they doing. Nah, this was born organically from oppression, from the need to defend ourselves. From the need to defend ourselves. And that's why the dialogue between us and them was able to happen, because they realized that there's some official niggas on this side that deserve that chance. You know what I mean? Like bros from Chicago, like, yo, there's some New York bros that give it up official for this. You know what I mean? And there's some Bloods from the West Coast that know that there's official homies out here in New York that deserve to carry the mantle forward and to represent the way they do. They realize that. You can't just tell a nigga that been doing this for X amount of time that I'm not official. You're fucking bugging. Then if that's a conversation that needs to be had, it could be had. And I feel like any real nigga's gonna respect it.